Hi everyone, welcome back to Year of the Book. Thanks for watching. It is that time again of the month, by which I mean it's time for me to reflect on what I learned in the last month of writing. We're talking about May here because obviously, as usual, I am late with this video, so I'm sorry about that. More on that later. Anyway, so if you're new here, I've been doing these videos every month where I talk about what I learned in the previous month. Now, you don't need to go back and watch all the other months. These are kind of standalone reflections and learnings as I go through my writing journey. If you do watch all of them, you'll probably see a potentially interesting emergent psychoanalysis of my character as the months go by, because that's what it feels like sometimes as I reflect on my writing journey. So just to preface this, this might get a little bit long, a little bit rambly. I even had to make myself some notes, which I don't usually do. So I'm going to apologize in advance for the rambling nature of this month's what I learned. Now I will put timestamps in the description, so if you just want to skip ahead to the writing part, I'll put the time below. Don't worry, I'm not going to get offended. Just skip ahead, get to the writing part, that's fine. If you like my videos, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe as well, because that will really help my self-esteem. Anyway, let's get into it. So, if you've been watching my videos in the past month, you'll see that I entered burnout, largely related to my work as an academic. This happened to coincide happily with some annual leave that I had booked off, so I took a week off work. I talked to my closest colleagues about how I'd been feeling, which is something that I've never done, by the way. I've never been that open with anyone before. So that was a big thing. And I also had to pause my usual writing schedule. So I have been writing up until this point on Tuesday and Thursday evening, and then some other kind of occasional ad hoc bits of writing, like when I've been away from work or when I haven't had the kids to look after and I had a bit more time. But that was basically my writing schedule. And I realized when I got burnt out that I just wasn't going to be able to do it. I didn't feel like I had no motivation. It was really a struggle to just do anything to get through the day. And because I'm usually writing in the evenings, I just knew that I wasn't going to have any energy left. And I also felt really shit about myself. I felt like everything I do is terrible and I am completely incompetent, and I knew that that wasn't the right mindset to be writing in. So I just hit pause on that schedule and said, okay, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. Well, why would I beat myself up about it, you might ask? What's wrong with hitting pause when you're not doing well mentally? That's completely fine. It's a reasonable, understandable thing to do. Why would I be worried about it? Well, let me tell you what I've learned this month about myself. I am driven by fear and associated shame of not finishing things, not following through on things, letting people around me down, letting myself down, losing control of things, and people thinking that I am incompetent. I realized that a lot of what I do in my work and in my life, and then it gets into also my writing, is I kind of push myself to keep going, to keep doing things. I force myself to keep going even when I don't want to, even when I'm overwhelmed, even when I'm highly stressed and I'm not actually benefiting from any of these things. I push through, I push through, I push through because of this fear, which must be very deep-seated in me. And what I learned this month is that not pushing through does not mean failure. not forcing myself to finish something when I'm struggling does not mean I'll never finish it. Now this might seem obvious to many people. This was not obvious to me. I always feel like I have to keep going, I have to keep going. I feel like if I stop, I might lose control of everything. Or if I stop, I'll never finish it. It will never get done. Or if I stop and tell people that I'm struggling with something or that I need help with something, people will think that I'm incompetent or an idiot or that I can't do it. And that fear has, throughout my adult life, forced me to keep going, keep going, keep going, at my own expense, at the expense of my welfare and well-being. And that is why I get burnt out. There are lots of other reasons for that, but that is a main driver of my burnout. And this is not the first time I've experienced burnout. This has happened before in previous jobs on a number of occasions. So bit of a pattern emerging. Now you might at this point ask, where does that deep-seated fear come from? Well, I know where it comes from because I have ADHD. I just found out today. So I do have a track record of struggling to follow through with things, of struggling to finish things, to wrap up projects, to finish my freaking stories that sat there for years and years, right? I never got around to stuff. So I think that is a large part of what drives that fear and what has kept me forcing myself to try and do stuff when I'm not feeling motivated, when I'm drained of energy, when I'm completely overwhelmed. And what happens? Well, it leads to burnout. So now I know that I have ADHD and that I'm also autistic, and I need to learn to work with that instead of fighting against it, which is hard because I've been fighting against it my whole life, not knowing what I was fighting against. And that is kind of a hard lesson to learn, if I'm honest with you. And I'm also like, I'm mad about this as a late diagnosed neurodivergent woman. I am mad about the sort of gendered nature of research on ADHD and autism that was very narrowly focused on male symptoms and externalizations. That's another story. So I did say it was going to be rambly. I'm leaning into it. I'm leaning into the tangential speech that apparently I do according to some medical notes. Anyway, so let's get to the writing part, because even though, and this is the interesting part, even though I paused my writing schedule, I hit pause on it, and I decided I wasn't going to beat myself up about it, I actually ended up getting quite a lot done in May. And unbelievably, this was the month that I finished 2 stories that have been sitting on my computer for nearly 15 years. I could not believe it. One day, in the week when I was off work, I woke up. We had people helping us look after the kids. That made a huge difference. I woke up and I felt like writing, and I was like, okay, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling motivated. Let's get into it. And I felt like going into those stories, and I'd not even looked at them for 10 years or more. And I finished both of them in a day, and I just felt so proud of myself for that. And I think I felt proud of myself because, I mean, now knowing that I have ADHD, because of that deep-seated fear of not finishing, of not following through on things, I think that's why it felt like such a huge achievement for me. May is also the month when I have submitted a story, the same story, to an anthology and also to a writing competition, and I also submitted a poem to a writing contest. And I also started to get serious about my publication strategy as a short story author. I've got another video about that coming out this week, so do keep an eye out for that. And I really started to kind of get organized. So actually, in writing terms, if you want to think about it in terms of productivity, and I don't really, to be honest, but it was quite a productive month, not in terms of words on paper. If I forget about that for a second, just the fact that I finished those 2 stories, I edited some more stories, I made a couple of submissions, that's a pretty prolific month by my terms. So I feel super proud of myself for that. I still have not returned to my kind of regular writing schedule, and I don't know when I'm going to do that. One reason is that I have a bit more annual leave to use up before I finish my job, and I think I'm going to use those days to be able to write in bigger chunks instead. And instead, I'm just going to be taking it a bit easier in the evenings, because I realized I don't really look back at my old videos on YouTube, but if you go back and watch them, you'll see on my write nights that I am very, very frequently completely overwhelmed and completely exhausted by the end of the working day, by the time the kids have gone to bed and it's my time to write. Like, I'm done. My energy is just all drained away, and it's very, very difficult to get myself up and back at the desk writing. Now, it is true that I always feel better, my mood is lifted when I do write, so it definitely does something for me, and sometimes it is worth kind of pushing myself to do it. But I realize now that a lot of the time it's not worth me forcing myself to that desk in the evening when I've been sat at that desk all day already. It's sometimes just not worth it, and that I sometimes need to just lean into those moments where I feel the motivation to do some writing and jump on that and make the most of that, rather than saying, oh, I have to write on these specific evenings. So I'm going to be keeping my writing regular, and I'm going to be consistent with doing it regularly, but I'm not sure that I'm going to stay on a fixed schedule. And importantly, I'm also not going to beat myself up about that, because another thing that I've learned is writing advice for neurotypical authors might not always work for neurodivergent authors. We might need other types of advice to support us to work with our needs, and that's something that I'm really keen to learn more about. I did find a video from a neurodivergent author called MJ James, and they made a video talking about this, and I found that really useful and also really validating, so I'll link that in the comments for you in case you're interested. And that is it. That is what I learned in May. My God, it was a big one. It was a big one, and it was a tough one. As much of a life lesson as a writing lesson, but it has also taught me things, important things about what works for me as a writer. So it has been a thought-provoking month. Obviously now it's already June. I'm already looking ahead, and I'm looking forward to writing when I feel like writing. And I'm also going to be moving forward with my editing and preparing more stories to submit and try and get published. So if you made it to the end, thank you very much for watching. I have no idea how long I've been talking for, but I hope you found this video helpful or you enjoyed watching it. If you did, please give me a like and subscribe. It really helps. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.